Well, hello everyone. It is Kristi. It is Sunday, and so it is time for Social Science Sunday. We are coming to the end of this series, mostly because I'm getting bored of it. It's fine. I just think there's only so many topics you can do, and also I like to change my stuff up. So yeah, let's get started because this episode will really help us transition into the next series, which is going to be called "How Patriarchy Ruins Everything." And headbutt the mic as well. So yeah, patriarchy does ruin everything. We're going to be looking at how and why and in what ways in the coming weeks. But for today, we're going to do a little bit of analytic evaluation. We're going to take Guy's 7 frameworks of understanding discourse. And from that, we're going to listen to I'm going to be honest, like a very sexist individual, a pastor, and we're going to apply the systemic category. We're going to apply systematically these categories to the content. So first, let's go over the content the categories of that. Oh wow, like wording is hard today. And we're going to go over the categories of the 7 principles. And then we're going to listen to his comments all the way through. Take some notes, make some things. You might see things that I don't see. I might see things you don't see. That's fine. The important thing, however, is that by understanding what these categories are, we can consistently apply them to different forms of discourse in order to have like a comparable analysis. It doesn't mean to say everything has to be identical, but if we're using similar definitions or the same definition, ideally, to compare different social phenomenon, then we have a better empirical basis for claiming a comparison between concepts. All right, so let's move over. I've got this really exciting, that's interesting. Hold on. Let me just move. The chat window is a little bit weird, so what's going on here? I don't know. That's kind of strange. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The chat's not so important today. Okay, not that you're not important. It's just that we're going to come to you nearer the end. All right. The things we're going to look at to remind you, and they are on the screen, but they might be a little bit small for you. I think I can big them up a little bit. Yeah, we don't need that much of the pastor's face. That's fine. So I'll make that the biggest thing on screen, then the pastor. That's great. All right. So in what ways or what things are given value or meaning, right? So in terms of the significance category, listen to Pastor Steve Anderson and try to identify what things he is giving value or meaning to. In terms of his activity, I think it's this one's pretty easy. His activity is to speak as an authority on the will of God. Now, I don't really think we need to spend too much time on the activity thing. He's going to be deriving his legitimacy from a forged piece of writing included into the Christian scriptures, attributed to Paul, something from Timothy. However, most biblical scholars would identify Timothy and the pastoral letters generally as, well, they call them pseudo writing, pigrapha or something like that. But basically, it means it's forged. Identities. He is taking an identity as an authority on women's lives and women's activities. So that's going to be a little less. It's also part of his role. He's not so much using language to signal the sorts of relationship he wants to have, but he wants other people to have. Not only with him as an authority, as we'll see, but also within social groups, within individuals. He will definitely be discussing the distribution of social goods including, labor, time, unpaid labor, emotional labor, physical labor, these types of things. And in terms of connections, what concepts is he putting together as being like connected in his head? And what is the value or logical bridge connecting these things? So with that in mind, let's listen through first to hear what he has to say all the way through. Then we'll go back and we'll identify the important concepts in Guy's discourse analysis categories to help us illuminate the framework around what he is saying. Okay, so I think my sound should be working just as well as yours. Audio desktop is muted, so let's undo that. I think that's everything. Okay, cool. Oh, nope. Yeah, y'all ain't hearing nothing. I know I ain't hearing nothing. So where's the sound should be coming from? Oh, the headphones. I had it coming out of a different set of speakers. All right. Just back. Ooh, yeah, that you can definitely hear that now, though. All right. So
behind birth.
no, that's not what I wanted. Okay. Let's back this up a few seconds. There we go. So it's from an old school secular talk. This is back from 2014, but I don't think the message has really changed that much. So I'm not overly worried that I'm unrepresentative in terms of this guy's views today. All right, let's go.
Him tell women that they're whores.
Because the teaching behind birth control is that it frees women of the bondage of, being strapped to the house with all these children. And in reality, there is some truth to the fact that having a bunch of children does tie a woman to her husband. Yep. But that's a good thing. This is where women have derived their identity throughout history. This is an important part of being a woman, being a mother. But yet today, because of birth control, because we've basically given women the power, we've empowered them to decide, hey, I don't want to have children, or I want to wait a long time to have children, and so forth. This becomes a part of their life that goes on the back burner. And it creates a mentality that says, my primary role is not to get married, bear children, and guide the house, as 1 Timothy chapter 5 teaches. But rather, my main goal is my career. My main goal is to go to college and to graduate from college, and I'm going to be a lawyer, and I'm going to be a doctor, and I'm going to be a marine biologist. That's my main thing. And, when I'm ready, I guess I'll also have a husband, too, while I'm at it. My main thing is to be a politician. My main thing is to run a business. My main thing is my career, but I guess I'll add a husband into the mix. And I guess if I want, I'll schedule a few children, maybe 1, 2. Look, this is not the way that the Bible looks at this. And this is not the way that we should look at this. But it's the way the world looks at it now because of birth control. Because it used to be, a young woman, she gets married, she has children, and that's her job. I mean, that's how she's going to live her life. That's right, boys. I'm on the pill. M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E. I'm a whore. I'm on the pill. Come fornicate with me. Okay, look, this is what birth control does to our society. So not only does it affect women, not only does it affect the mother, it corrupts her view of childbearing, it corrupts her character, it corrupts her blood plasma, it corrupts her health. This is what it does to our society. It promotes promiscuity. It promotes whoredom.
Ah!
All right, so there was a lot there to go through. So let's start, let's think a little bit about significance, right? And the values around his comments in terms of what is important and what's not important. So what is he giving value to, or what does he say is meaningful? Well, we'll notice, so empirically we know, for instance, that, and here I'm going to use the term women, we can use the term pregnant people. I think I'm just going to fall into that because I'm going to be quoting him a lot. So I just want to declare up front when I talk about women getting pregnant, I shall also put in there, and other, non-cis pregnant people, or pregnant people generally. But there is also here, the reason I want to use the word women is because of it's reflecting the very narrow binary that exists within patriarchy. And the binary is not about quality of life. And the binary is not about providing, having financial resources or anything like that. The only thing, I guess I can take off my headphones now for the moment, but you can see that his notion of significance, the only thing he values is women having babies regardless of their ability to afford them, regardless of their ability to have enough educational background to help with their homework and do all that sort of stuff. It's irrelevant how much social support they have. They are baby machines, And in his eyes, the fact that having several children makes a woman dependent on a man is a good thing. So why is that? Well, because it gives a man more power to control the woman, which is what he wants, right? I think we need to really get to the core of the idea of patriarchy, which is that cishet men own, in particular, cishet women, but also everyone. And ultimately, patriarchy is about various forms of slavery, unpaid labor, unpaid childcare, physical burden, emotional burden, all these sorts of things. It's about normalizing various forms of slavery and exploitation as normal and natural within a marital setting, or within the relationship of men to women in very binary. So you can see that women's minds, women's hearts, women's financial stability are all irrelevant. Also, what is interesting to me here is that, let's just take a typical heterosexual woman, right? Motherhood and caring for kids, let's say they have 3 kids and they have them 6 years apart. So in terms of, obviously you care for your kids your whole life, right? But in this case, you're looking at basically 25 years of a motherhood career. The most intense labor comes earliest in the child rearing years. And once you get to the state-sponsored education, which is like the largest childcare subsidy ever, which we need more of, but increasingly the burden goes down physically, not necessarily financially or emotionally, but the physical demands decline over time. So if a woman's parenthood career lasts about 25 years and her working career lasts from when she's 18 to 65, there's a huge labor gap there, which apparently just doesn't exist. So this is another fault I find with the economics of patriarchy, is that it really has no answer for what women's labor should be once these apparently important and vital roles of, the physical burdens of child rearing really start to ease off. Women are then left without meaning. And then, of course, they've also not taken any educational advancements because they were too busy raising their kids. And so, all of this is about keeping women dependent and making sure they provide free labor for men. Patriarchy is designed to exploit women to the benefit of men, and that's just true. All right, so we talked about activities, what the person is trying to do. We talked about his identity, and when we talk about relationships, when he's signaling the kind of relationship that he thinks is appropriate, it's all one-sided. The woman sacrifices her education. The woman sacrifices her earnings. The woman sacrifices her career path. They talk about motherhood being the most important job that a woman could have. Again, all this sort of binary stuff, but right, let's just work within the discourse as they use it. Jobs pay you. Jobs have benefits. A job isn't you working 24 hours a day for 5 years, basically for free. That's if you're expecting someone to do that, that's basically a form of enslavement, exploitation, right? But we hide it under this romantic language of marriage, and then women are just expected to do it. So this expectation of being catered to and having your house cleaned and basically women providing domestic service and sexual gratification and then also child rearing to a man is the fundamental exploitative trifecta of patriarchy in my opinion. And that is the relationship, this unfair, hierarchical, exploitative, very easy to be manipulative, and no checks on tyranny is their ideal. Exploiting women to the benefit of men is the ideal of patriarchy. Politics, the distribution of social goods. Okay, sorry, I touched the page. I shouldn't have done that. No, that's reading view. That's the one I want. All right. So with politics, distribution of social goods, there are no goods here. Women get all the work. Right? Women pour their time and money and effort into their kids, and then their kids, grow up and leave the house. There is no social good here. There is only self-negation and self-sacrifice. And to want anything for yourself, to want a career, to want an education, to want to delay childbearing and child rearing until you get to an age where you're financially and emotionally ready to do it is evil in their eyes. Why? Because by that point, you can be independent economically of, in their narrow world, your husband, because straight marriage is the only real marriage in their minds. And this threatens a man's ability to use psychological and other forms of manipulation in order to control a woman. If a woman has her own money and her own job and has a level of independence where she can get by without him, well, then he can't just threaten her and manipulate her and try to control her in order to maintain his status as head of the household. So all of this is really, really abusive. It's really, really sick. It's all about indoctrinating women and men into believing that women's work is something men are entitled to. And when a woman works for herself, she's selfish and bad. And the only valid way she can spend her unpaid labor, emotional labor, physical labor, is in childbearing, child rearing, keeping a household neat, and keeping your husband sexually satisfied. That's just degrading. It's inhuman. It's selfish, and it's evil. All right, so connections, the use of language to render certain things connected or relevant. So here he is connecting this notion of women doing what men do in terms of becoming self-improvement, pursuing your passion, making a contribution to society, to the world. All of that public sphere kind of role is demonized as selfish and mean and being sexually promiscuous. Whereas all this unpaid labor and everything else, negating yourself, having no career, being being physically, financially dependent on someone who can manipulate you and control you and you have no recourse to or freedom to, that is their good. This is why patriarchy ruins everything, because it's inherently designed to harm people. And the most harm comes to like women and kids and gay people and trans people. Indirectly, straight cis het guys are indoctrinated into an abusive mentality that convinces them harming other people for their selfish needs is a good thing, which is sociopathic. And we're just gonna kind of look at. So I think I've kind of gone over this a little bit. I have to check the chat because I don't even. Oh, there are people in the chat. Hello, chat people. All right, let me look and see what you all have to say, and then I'm gonna play. I can't. Where's the chat? Oh, there's a chat. Okay, I see it now. I will just put it over here. All right. I know about this guy. I hate him. Yeah, Steven Anderson's a jerk. He's a new person for me to hate. He's worse than the cranberry Mike's Harder that I have to drink because there's still no green apple in stock. Boo, no green apple. Did you know that he's been banned from a ton of countries? I don't doubt it. I mean, I'm sure it's more for the homosexual homophobia. I'm sure he's a virulent homophobe. Oftentimes, we're so numb to the kind of things. I mean, obviously, too, that there's way more in the Bible itself justifies absolute cruelty and murder toward people who are gay. And of course, so that's more focused on, whereas with women, it tends to be about, property damage instead of sexual assault and those kinds of things. But, gay, you just straight up supposed to die according to the Bible. And I'm sure he said that, and I'm sure that has been the reason why he's been. I'm going to up this a little bit because I've got it on a bigger. So let's see. From countries, the Bible say women are only for making babies, so they have soldiers for the army. Yeah, I mean, women have always been there to be provide property to men in the form of heirs. And I don't want to say that this is a natural viewpoint. This is very much the very sick and twisted viewpoint that we've inherited from the Bronze Age, which is completely inappropriate to the 21st century. And the idea that we should still be bound by Bronze Age structures is, well, we'll go into that and why patriarchy ruins everything. The only meaning he attributes to women is mothers. Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't mind having kids. I just want to be trans mask too. Sure, exactly. The idea that parenthood and parenting can only take place within this narrow, specific definition, when in fact, if we really look at the history of what patriarchy has done in terms of relationships, it justifies domestic violence. Patriarchy is a justification for marital sexual assault. Patriarchy is a justification for even beating your kids. Like, there's literally, I can't think of anything good that comes from patriarchy. Patriarchy ruins everything because it's a form of, like, domestic fascism. Okay, yeah, when is he going to do some sermon about deadbeat dads? Well, yeah, deadbeat dads, this is it. The whole thing about the dynamic between what is expected of women and what is expected of men, again, cisnormative binary here, but providing for your family is a very vague thing. Having kids, cleaning the house, providing sex, you can say very clearly, oh, well, she's not doing this, she's not doing this. But if a wife wanted to make he's not providing for me, well, what criteria is there? What's the minimal provision? There is none. It can be negotiated, right? So women are always, in this scenario, held to very specific standards of activity, where men are held to very vague ones. Homeschool his kids. I'm sure he'd homeschool his kids. It's okay that you're late, Flynn. That's all right. I'm only going to go for like another 10 minutes because these shows, I'm going to move them to 30 minutes so that people get more engaged. I think an hour might be a little daunting for some people. Goes along with dudes thinking that paleo diet is a good idea. Yeah. I heard about Matt Powell, so I heard that he's into pumpkins. All right. So with these ideas, these categories in mind, I think we can go back now. I don't want to go too much into like phrase for phrase, so we're only going to pull out some very specific ones. Like, what was with the Mickey Mouse song? That was just weird. That was really weird. Okay, let's go ahead and listen to it one more time. Come on, Kyle. Oh, I have to hit play.
And today we're going to listen to him tell women that they're whores.
Because the teaching behind birth control is that it frees women of the bondage of, being strapped to the house with all these children. And in reality, there is some truth to the fact that having a bunch of children does tie a woman to her husband. Yep. But that's a good thing.
All right. So again, quantity over quality. Literally do not care about the quality of life of kids. He's not saying anything about the quality of parenthood or being raised in a nonviolent home. Doesn't say anything about modeling healthy relationships. It's just about numbers. So a good in his idea, in his world, is women, again, because this is a very homophobic, transphobic, variously, bigoted, anti-feminist perspective. The more that women are pregnant, regardless of their financial situation, and the more that makes them more dependent on their husband, and that dependency is a good thing. Why? Because it gives a man more ways to manipulate and control the woman in his life in order to get what he wants, regardless of her desires. This is why, like, patriarchy, I don't know if we want to call it authoritarianism or tyranny or a sort of like exploitative fascism. We can look at various political definitions. Probably not fascist is the best, but it's evil in terms of its disregard for the very humanity of 50% plus of the population. If we want to like just keep it down to straight cis het men, then obviously it's even a smaller percentage. But yeah, it's evil. It just violates human rights and human dignity and basic principles of egalitarianism and human worth.
This is where women have derived their identity throughout history. This is an important part of being a woman.
Here's the thing, is that patriarchy is structured such that women had no other options because men, cis het men needed, they wanted a cis het woman because they wanted kids, and men can't have kids on their own, right? So they need to be, that power lies with, in their minds, again, cis het women exclusively. That is a threat to patriarchy. Women's, like, having bodily autonomy could undermine the production of property, that property being offspring. And so men in ancient times, in various ways around human societies in the world, have created justifications as to for the enslavement of women, and in particular, the enslavement of their bodies in the service of physical reproduction, reproducing the next generation. And again, that's just evil. So to say that a woman having identity separate from her being a baby machine is just the worst.
Being a mother. But yet today, because of birth control, because we've basically given women the power, we've empowered them to...
This, and empowering women to control the timing and number of their pregnancies is a massive threat to Christian fundamentalists like Pastor Sexist here, because then the man can't manipulate and abuse and control in very unhealthy ways. And because patriarchal power is in itself grounded in unhealthy assumptions about exploitation, anything that allows women autonomy, either bodily or economic, is a direct threat. And again, it doesn't matter the quality of the life of like the woman involved or the other, like the pregnant person involved or the kids. This has nothing to do with the quality of life. It's all to do about numbers.
Decide, hey, I don't want to have children, or I want to wait a long time to have children, and so forth. This becomes a part of their life that goes on the back burner.
Again, if we think about it, a woman's motherhood career might span 20 years. Her employment career, if she starts at 16 and works to 65, is 50 years. So you've got 50 years there of potential like work and employment. So what is his answer? Oh, just more free labor. Once your kids are grown, you should be taking care of your grandkids. You just do, and you clean the house, and you volunteer at church. Women's labor is never valued, other than how good it makes the man look, or provides him with something. It's just freaking evil.
And it creates a mentality that says, my primary role is not to get married, bear children, and guide the house, as 1 Timothy chapter 5 teaches.
By the way, that's a forgery. Timothy is part of the pastoral letters, which all biblical scholars say reflect the concerns of the 2nd century Christian churches and are clearly not written by Paul, but were attributed by Paul to somebody who had an agenda. Timothy and the other ones, this is also you get like women shouldn't speak in church. Even though Paul, for all of his flaws, and he had a lot of them, he did give women a very prominent role, and he called women apostles, and he had women in his church who led and played very vital roles. Later on, men found that very threatening. So they lied and somebody lied and put into the words of, put into the mouth of Paul that women don't have any power. And of course, this lie, this forgery was very convenient to other men who didn't want to compete for power status with women. So they're like, oh yeah, shut up, ladies. So Paul's initial crappy egalitarianism, shall we say. At least he was desperate. He had women in leadership positions because he didn't have enough men. But as soon as there was like a critical mass of men to enforce their sexist worldviews back into an institution, they did. Anyway, so forgery.
But rather, my main goal is my career.
Yeah, just blows your mind. I'm not going to be a mother until I'm 65, so I want to do something else. Also, I want to have some financial, like, grounding and recourse so that I can feed my kids if I need to. And that, in his eyes, is terrible. Poverty is better, in his eyes, from what he is saying, than having a mom who works and can take care of the physical needs of her kids.
You know, my main goal is to go to college and to graduate from college, and I'm going to be a lawyer.
Also, I want to note here that there are studies after study after study after series of studies that demonstrate that women who complete higher levels of education actually have kids who do better in school, right? There's a reason why we kind of make a special category for first-time college students. And that's because if your parents haven't gone to college and don't know what it's like to write an essay or to organize your time or to budget, right, then you have to go and learn all those things firsthand because you don't have parents who can help you prep for that. If you've had parents who went to law school, they know how to study. Oh my God, do they know how to study? And they know how to write. Okay, so from right away, having time with your kids as a mother or a father, whatever, but as a primary caregiver, the higher your education, the more you're exposed to, the more you know about the world, the better prepared your kids are going to be when they hit school because they are actually immersed in your learning from the start. So again, this notion of like having girls get pregnant at 14 or 16 and then just keep on having babies, they're emotionally unprepared. They're physically unprepared. They are mentally unprepared with patience. And, and so in every way, you're just creating a situation that is rife for possibly physical violence, emotional abuse, mental abuse, and also kids who are going to be, compared to parents that have higher education, they're going to be lagging in schools. If you didn't get to do algebra because you got pregnant at 14, how are you going to deal with your kids' algebra homework when they get home from school? You can't. Right? So again, it's not at all about the quality of life. It's all about the quantity.
And I'm going to be a doctor, and I'm going to be a marine biologist. That's my main thing.
Can you imagine being angry at the idea that a mother, a woman who becomes a doctor, and then and then has kids? You know how qualified she is to take care of her kids at that point? Medically? She would know, what is properly needs, what needs to go into the doctors and what is just probably a cold and all kinds of first aid. Just imagine being angry that a mother has the skills to be a medical doctor to their kids. And that's terrible. Mind blown.
And, when I'm ready, I guess I'll also have a husband, too, while I'm at it. My main thing is to be a politician. My main thing is to run a business.
He wants your main thing to be doing unpaid labor for your entire life so that you have no sense of who you are except through what you do for men or your children. That's so messed up.
My main thing is my career, but I guess I'll add a husband into the mix. And I guess if I want, I'll schedule a few children. Maybe 1, 2. Look, this is not the way that the Bible looks at this. And this is not...
Okay, remember, the Bible was written exclusively by men who were already benefiting from exploitative, physical, sexual labor on behalf of women and wanted to justify their exploitation. The best way to exploit someone is to convince them that you exploiting them is a good thing. If you indoctrinate women and men, but especially women, that being subservient to a man, providing sex to a man, providing child care, child rearing, childbearing, household maintenance for free, with no complaining, and never asking for anything is the most noble thing you can do. You've just convinced someone to be your slave. And patriarchy is about convincing men and women. So it's patriarchy is about convincing men that women are their slaves. Again, false binary, but we're going to go with it. And it's about indoctrinating women to accepting slavery. Ultimately, and then it's backed up with violence. Sexual violence, physical violence, various forms of emotional, mental abuse. And then all of that abuse and violence is reinforced and normalized by the community of men who have power. It's one of the biggest con jobs of history is to convince women that basically accepting slavery is the most noble thing they can do. And that's why I want to have this series of why patriarchy ruins everything. Because it's just evil. And we don't talk enough about all the evil inside patriarchy. Transphobia comes back to patriarchy. Homophobia comes back to patriarchy. Misandry comes back to patriarchy. Misogyny comes back to patriarchy. If you actually look at the root source of identity oppressions that are not based on ethnicity, that are based instead on gender and sex, it is all based in misogyny. It's all based in a patriarchal worldview. It's all of it is, and as I want to talk about in the series, the most powerful source of patriarchal norms in society. It's not in politics, it's not in economics, it's not even in the social sphere, it's in religion. And the problem with religion is that religion poisons, in this case, patriarchy poisons the mind of people, and then they take that out of the churches and they take that into society. And then society is poisoned. And then they go home and they enact these abusive power dynamics. And then you get oppression that is reinforced in the home and in society. So that's the kind of stuff I want to really unpack, hopefully, in the series. Okay, we'll wrap this up and then we'll wrap this up.
Not the way that we should look at this, but it's the way the world looks at it now because of birth control. Because it used to be, you know, a young woman, she gets married, she has children, and that's her job. I mean,
again, it's not her job because she's not getting paid. It's not her job because she's not earning a pension. It's not her job because she doesn't get paid time off. It is unpaid labor, exploitative, and under this system, and expected. It's basically slavery.
that's how she's going to live her life.
See, that's it. You're enslaved now. Your body, you can't control how often you get pregnant. It doesn't matter if your pregnancies are dangerous. Don't use birth control. Just let it go and, just work all the time. And don't complain. Because this is what God wants from you. It's so messed up.
That's right, boys. I'm on the pill. MICKEY.
Again, this is so weird.
MOUSE. I'm a whore. I'm on the pill. Come.
Yeah, I understand why women controlling their own fertility is a threat to him, because it takes what he thinks is men's rightful power to control women's bodies by implanting them, with their sperm and having a seed come out, and then you get everything belongs to you. It's so sick.
Come fornicate with me. Okay, look, this is what birth control does to our society. So not only does it affect women, not only does it affect the mother, it corrupts her view of childbearing, it corrupts her character. It
corrupts her to think that what she does matters, that her life matters, that she can make a valuable contribution that isn't just between her legs. You can see how threatening feminism is to these men and women, but primarily in churches, we're talking exclusively about male leaders. Anything that gives women bodily autonomy, gives them financial freedom, gives them a sense of purpose outside of making a man happy, convinces them they don't have to be slaves. And that's why it's such a threat.
It corrupts her blood plasma. It corrupts her health. This is what it does to our society. It promotes promiscuity. It promotes whoredom.
Yeah, promiscuity is always a problem with women. All right. So, just call him scumboy or something. Yeah, I hated writing an essay when I was in school. I hated writing more than one sentence. It's even worse when women are indoctrinated. And women, of course, absolutely do internalize their own, internalize misogyny and buy into this. And by buying into it and normalizing it, they're basically normalizing their own enslavement. Absolutely. Suffering in general is normalized by making the believer think that it is holy to suffer. Also true. Accept your lot in life. Right? This is another way of pacifying resistance for people's desire for freedom and individual rights, is to convince them that sacrificing those things and giving them up is actually what God wants. God wants you to be enslaved. What is that? That's sort of the rich man at his castle, the poor man at his gate. Something about God has ordered them all and organized their estate. Like this, convincing people who are exploited that they are meant to be exploited is one of the more evil things you can do in life. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Just kind of take this piece of discourse and look to see which of the categories are relevant or not, and in what ways does this structure help us identify concepts, identities, values, and norms, locating them within a historical context, text, or an historical text, in this case, the Christian scriptures. And you can kind of see how it helps us organize our thoughts a little bit more. Now, if we were doing this for a real analysis, we would create concept bubbles, and we would take his quotes and we would kind of distill this down to concepts and show how they're linking up, and link to the Bible passage, and sort of like he's doing a reference for authority. He's doing an appeal to authority here with the Bible, saying the Bible says this, so it must be true. So yeah, I think I'm going to do this again next week, because next Sunday is the Sunday like before I fly to the UK, and I want to keep this low key. I don't want to switch over and do the patriarchy thing. So for the foreseeable future, I think we're just going to look at some sexist jerks. And we're going to look at the Guy's 7 points in order to systematically unpack the things that, when we hear it, we know. I didn't say anything in that analysis that you didn't hear, but what the analysis allows us to do is really go through and show the underlying patterns and the concepts and how they come up again and again and again. All right. Hey, everyone. I think someone's going to go biking. I don't know if you can hear the motorbike. No, looking at it, you probably can't hear the motorbike in the background. But anyway, hey, if you want to hear more of my dulcet tones, you can always come over to the Twitch channel Rolling Left, where we are going to be having our D&D game later on tonight. Other than that, yeah, I think that all that's left to be said is that I've been Kristi. You've been awesome. I will see you again next week, and have a wonderful day. Stay happy, stay healthy, and stay safe. Wherever it is, whenever it is you are. Now you get to watch me press the end stream button as well. So, yeah, I've been Kristi. You've been awesome. Catch you all next time. Bye-bye.